What is up, guys? Welcome to the Season of Discovery tier list. Today, I wanted to make a tier list, kind of dive into which classes are good in Season of Discovery. If you're thinking about starting up, I have a lot of people asking me, is it too late to start playing Season of Discovery? And the answer is no. SoD's going to be around for a while. It's probably going to turn into an era server, which means it's going to stick around forever. And we're going to go over DPS numbers for people that are starting to really get into the Scarlet Enclave gear, getting the weapons and the 6-set bonuses, and to see which classes are kind of outshining the others. And this might help you pick which class that you're going to play, or maybe which alt that you're going to roll if you're interested in playing some more Season of Discovery. So let's just go ahead and start off with the front page of WoW logs, and we'll take a look at some of the classes that are performing the most. The best, and at the very top we have our warriors and paladins, and 100% all of these guys are going to have Ashbringers. There probably isn't a way to do this much damage without one, and we even have a melee hunter, and this hunter also will have an Ashbringer. So there is kind of a tier list for non-Ashbringers, and then once people get the Ashbringer, like melee hunter is pretty mid, like maybe C tier, and then they get an Ashbringer, and then they're borderline up there with the S tier players. So it's going to be tough to put all these into perspective for you guys, because some of these classes will not be that fun to play. They won't blast as hard until they get the Ashbringer. Warlocks is the opposite end of the spectrum, where they blast even without full bisc gear. They're incredibly good at doing damage and spamming the Shadow Bolt volley on targets like Reborn Council. So we're going to take a look at all the classes today. You see a couple of Shadow Priests, a couple of exceptional Fire Mages and Boomkins, one Feral Druid right there. Playing any of these classes, these are obviously going to be some of the top classes. I see a couple of Elemental Shamans and one or two Rogues in there as well. And it looks like the Rogues are playing Assassination at the top end. So that gives you kind of an idea of where we're going to start on this tier list. So we're going to start with the DPS today. At the very top of the list, we are going to put the Ashbringer users. So we're going to start with the Ret Paladins and the Fury Warriors in the S tier. Now, these classes tend to not feel that great until they get fully geared, but once they get fully geared, let me tell you, they absolutely blast. The Ashbringer is the strongest weapon that Classic WoW has ever seen. It immediately adds about 30% damage to whatever you were already doing, and that's just from the sword alone, the proc on it, just doing the damage for you. You don't change anything about your class or rotation. It just absolutely bangs. The Ashbringer, like I said, it is an incredible weapon. If you have a chance to go for it, you will not regret it. It will change how much fun you're having in World of Warcraft immediately. I got mine 2 days ago, and I'm just in love with it. So the double Ashbringer classes, we're going to put those up here. I'm going to hold off on Melee Hunter for now. And then next is, of course, is going to be our Affliction and Destro Warlocks. Now, Warlock, I'm going to put Destro first, and then we're going to put Affliction followed up by Destro, because both of these classes are incredibly good. Warlock dots are amazing on multi-target, and their Shadow Bolt volley as well. They also have that corruption from their tier 3 that just never expires. So the longer the fight goes, the more damage they do, because it just like keeps ramping up. So I think that these are the top 4 classes, and it's going to be followed by Boomkins. Now, Boomkins, in my opinion, have been kind of the hero class. They carried most of the groups during progression. They were incredibly strong. Starfall just does so much damage, and they have really good single target as well. So if we take a look at these classes, we'll have a look at right now at the damage statistics. You can see that your Boomkins are doing very well in the 99th percentile, your Fury Warriors, Ret Paladins, and the Destro and Afflocks. This is on every fight. The biggest fight in the raid, though, is going to be Reborn Council. This, in my opinion, is where a lot of guilds get hung up on, meeting the DPS check, handling the mechanics, doing enough damage to 3 different targets. Even though they just recently changed the enrage timer to 10 minutes, you still see these classes really shining through in this raid. And this is why Shadow Priests actually get ranked so highly. They're not the best at single target, but their 2 target is disgusting, and their 3 target is also good if they get a certain set of gear. They need like the tier 2 6 set in order to do insane damage from their dots. And Balanced Druid just is able to kind of hit everything with Starfall all the way around the room. And then Affliction and Destro, just the kings on this fight, they will really help your guild progress if you guys are stuck on a DPS check, especially for 20 mans. I know 20 mans is still a bit tough in the Scarlet Enclave raid. Now, Melee Hunter is a bit strange to me. I'm not really sure what the Melee Hunters are doing to parse well on this fight, but it must be something to do with cleaving, maybe with an Ashbringer towards the top or something like that. And then Fire Mages, when they get the 2 set, their dots just do a ton of damage. So we're actually going to look at Fire Mage here. I'm going to put Fire as well. Once they get fully geared, Fire Mage, in my opinion, does belong in the S tier. But they are incredibly gear dependent, just like the Ret Paladin and the Warrior. These classes are kind of in the sweet spot. They tend to do a ton of damage no matter what, especially with multi-dotting and Reborn Council. But these particular classes are very gear dependent, and they need their tier 3.5 set bonuses to absolutely bang in the raids. What the next one is a bit surprising to me. So what I want to do here is I want to go into the A tier, but for top A tier, we're going to put Melee Hunter. This only applies to Melee Hunters that have an Ashbringer, though. I don't know if everyone can do as much damage as Tree Ranger. He tends to be the top parsing Melee Hunter in Season of Discovery, so it's tough to compare other Melee Hunters to him. But yes, I do think that the Melee Hunters have potential to be blasters in the raid. Following that is going to be our Marksman Hunters. Right here, they also belong in the A tier. Marksman Hunter is incredibly good damage, single target, as well as AoE, especially if they're in multi-shot range, as well as their traps do a lot of damage. And then what we're going to have following that is going to be our Assassination Rogues. I believe that is going to be... We don't have... So this is a more of... I don't know if they have an Assassination. So Outlaw is actually going to be Assassination. And then we have our Combat Rogues. We'll say Combat. We'll say this is Assa and this is Combat. We have Assassination Rogues and then our Combat Rogues following that. Sub, unfortunately, is not very good, but I would say Rogue, for a very long time, had one of the strongest single-target DPSs in the game. Let's take a look at Lillian Voss, and you'll see the Assassination Rogues kind of up here towards the top. And this is a pretty normal. If we go 95th percentile, the Assassination Rogue stocks will climb a bit. They are not as gear dependent. They can completely they can top damage in most raids on single target, with the exception of some Destro locks. Let's take a look at the actual fight on the top logs to see who's doing top damage. So for single target damage, our highest in the world right now is 12.5k on Lillian Voss, and that is by a Destro lock, followed by 2 Ret Paladins, and then some Assassination Rogues. So these are going to be your top single target damage classes, and then a couple of exceptional Melee Hunter outliers that have an Ashbringer. A couple of Fire Mages sprinkled in there. 1 Shadow Priest doing a ton of damage. 10,000 DPS single target, which is really good. And then you have some Boomkins. So right here, if you're looking at the tier list, this is going to be our next one that we're going to slot in, and it's Shadow Priest. So if you're playing any of these classes, in my opinion, you're going to have a great time in the raids. You're going to be able to absolutely blast and compete for top damage once you get a certain amount of gear. And you will absolutely blast in the Scarlet Enclave once you get some of the tier 3.5 set bonuses. Below this, it starts to get a bit tricky. There are some exceptional players that do make the list every now and then, like Enhancement and Elementals. It looks like Enhance is doing better damage than Elemental single target. But the moment that we go to like a Beastmaster fight, Elemental Shaman will outshine it because it's able to cleave. And this is where the multi-dot classes really shine on the Beastmaster fight. And in the higher percentage, you'll see warriors rise to the top because these guilds will tank the bosses together so that the warriors can cleave. And this is where Fury Warriors, the cleave is like their #1 damage. So if it's a 2-target fight, Fury Warrior is just insane right now. But you do need a guild that fights the boss specifically for you so that you're able to parse them there. And that requires a lot of coordination. Below this list, we're going to go ahead and rank the rest of the players now. And I think that starting with the B tier, we're going to go ahead and put in our Ellie Shamans, followed by our Feral Druids. And then we also have Demonology Warlock. So Demonology Warlock is still very good. It's just that Destro and Affliction are so good that they tend to be able to out DPS and single target as well as multi-target. So there isn't too much of a reason to play Demo Lock right now unless you just really love that particular spec. I would kind of avoid it if you're trying to do top damage. Below this, we have some classes that kind of get overlooked a lot that aren't played very often in Season of Discovery. That's going to be our Sub Rogues, our Frost Mages, followed by our Enhancement Shamans. These classes are usually towards the bottom. Enhanced, Frost, and Sub Rogue tend to be way down here. Now, this is a 2-target fight. Let's take a look at Lillian Voss. Enhancement is kind of the outlier where it does a good amount of damage single target. Demonology doing probably the worst behind Arms Warrior. Arms Warrior is literally the worst class for PvE that we've ever seen in Classic. I'm really not sure why it's so bad, but Arms Warrior gets our honorary F spot. It's just way. I don't know why. Like I said, it's so bad. And then Beastmaster Hunter is not even on the logs. I don't know why, but BM Hunter just, it's so bad that maybe it's just unplayable, or just the pet damage doesn't count towards logs or something. I don't know what's going on with the BM Hunters, but they're also in the F tier. Nobody plays them. Nobody plays these two specs because they're just so bad. I wonder why Blizzard hasn't buffed these specs or anything yet, or why nobody's really playing them. And let's take a look at Caldoran, which is the premier fight of the raid. Most guilds will kind of base what class is good off of the last boss in the raid, because, you know, besides the multi-dot fight, this fight is obviously the hardest fight in the raid. So with these numbers, you can kind of get a feel of who's actually blasting in the raid. So once Fury Warriors get Ashbringer, they actually get the biggest DPS increase. If Fury Warriors almost, from what I've heard, it's almost like unplayable until you get fully geared. At least that's what Joker says. He's been molding about it, but once he got the Ashbringer, I mean, he's absolutely cranking. There's nobody that's even getting close to him anymore in damage. So Fury and Rhett is the absolute pinnacle S tier classes once they get the Ashbringer. Like I said, if you're playing one of these classes, you have to go get an Ashbringer. And what's great is like everybody gets one after 12 weeks of playing the game, because you get 1 scrap a week. 1 ingot a week from just doing your weekly turn in the new zone, the Avalon. So that, and then the Warlocks are absolutely pumping. We check max percentile too, and it's just Rets and Fury Warriors in the max percentile. Probably a lot of this is padding on the ads, but they also do a ton of damage to the bosses as well. So that being said, we have a couple more classes to slot in the D tier. I mean, honestly, I was going to put these guys in D tier, but let's be honest, they're just F tier. Like, nobody plays them. So I think that this is it. Also, I haven't seen an Arcane Mage. I haven't seen a single Arcane Mage. It's because Arcane plays healer now. So I guess we would leave this out and we would rank Arcane as a healer. So that pretty much covers all of our DPS classes. We can go right into the tank tier list. So let's go ahead and do our tank tier list now. By far, the only S tier tank in the game, in my personal opinion, is going to be our Rogues. Rogues can get 106% avoidance, and they will no longer take any damage from just about any mechanic, especially not melee. They can survive tanking the entire Scarlet Enclave raid and just pre-bis. Their threat is not the best. That's the only thing that I would say about Rogue tank. But you can solo most of the bosses in Naxxramas, Molten Core, ZG. Simonize has just about sold every boss in the game as a rogue tank. And it blows my mind how good they are. They do great DPS as well. We have dual spec in the game, so you can go damage, you can go tank, and it's absolutely, they're so much fun to play. By far, Rogue Tank has been the #1 tank in Season of Discovery in Phase 8. And let's go ahead and do the second ranked tank. In my personal opinion, is got to be the Shamans. The Shaman tanks have been phenomenal in Season of Discovery. Let me go ahead and put up our enhancement Shaman. Here it is. Okay, Shaman tanks have just been so good. Their threat is really good. Their survivability is insane. They're insanely fast boosters. So are the rogues. Like if you're boosting players for money, they can make a ton of money. By far, the tanks are the most profitable if you're trying to make money, because they can you can sell boost, you can solo strat undead for orbs, you can solo a lot of content on your own. They have incredible sustain and self-healing, and the set combinations for these it's infinite, and they're just very, very good. Beyond that, these are some of the only tanks that can actually survive main tanking Caldoran without tier 3.5 gear. Once you get gear, most every tank is viable. However, some tanks will need more love than others to be able to main tank the Scarlet Enclave, and that's kind of what we're going to base this tier list off today. Following behind our enhancement shamans is going to be our Guardian Druids. They're also very, very good, and they can tank every content in the game. They can bark skin themselves once every 15 seconds, and they have survival instincts as a last stand. So their defensive cooldowns are very good. They don't take much damage. They have great threat all around. Guardian Druid and Shaman are just fantastic. Beyond that, we have Prot Warriors, which just received a buff. They are a bit more gear dependent, as well as the Warlocks. So we will put our Warlock tank in the same category. I'm just going to put a Demonology for Warlock. Where is that at? So we'll put our Warlock tanks right here. They are about on the same page as Warrior tanks as far as like survivability, threat, everything like that. Warlock tanks are very good. And then honestly, Paladin tanks have been one of the premier tanks up until now. It's a bit unfortunate, but Paladin's tank, I main Paladin tank, and I ended up rerolling Ret this tier because Paladin tanks were not able to main tank bosses. We were getting one shot in Prebis gear, and you need to have a lot of shield block value. You need to have a lot of gear, and once you start getting tier 3.5 gear, you can main tank the raid. Like every tank can main tank the raid in Scarlet Enclave, but I feel like Prot Paladins make the best off tanks. They make fantastic tanks for picking up multi-target threat, so picking up ads on Kildoran. They're incredibly good at that. They're just not as good as a rogue tank, a Guardian Druid, or any of these other classes, to be honest, as a main tank, because they just don't have the mitigation to survive the big hits that a lot of these other tanks do. So you're probably, like when you do Herod, you probably want to put like a rogue tank or a Guardian Druid on Herod, and then your Paladin can pick up Vicious because it doesn't hit as hard. But you want a rogue tank or something like a Guardian Druid or Shaman main tanking Caldoran. It's just going to make your life a bit easier, unless one of these three classes that you have for your main tank in the raid has a lot of gear. So that being said, that's going to be our tank tier list for Season of Discovery. Let's go ahead and wipe these now, and let's do the healers. The healing tier list is going to be short and sweet, guys. I'm going to be very honest with you. All the healers are insanely good in Season of Discovery. I'll put them in a certain order for you, but every healer is just good in SoD. There isn't really one healer per se that's worse than the other. They all have their individual strengths, and they're all very good. I think that mage healers, shamans, they all have some of the highest throughput. Priests are very good as well. This is the best I've ever seen healing in any version of the game, like as far as how even all the healers are. You can clear any content with any of these healers. They're all insanely good throughput healers. But if I'm for progression rating, there's a couple of these that stand out slightly more. I would say Priest because of Pain Sup and Barrier, Resto Druid because of Barkskins. Barkskin is very good, and then Paladin for Hand of Sack, which is one of the only things that works on the Hand of Reckoning. the tank buster on Caldoran. So maybe in this order, I would say is what you want in your raid, because you need the pain subs, you need the domes to survive some of the AoE damage, especially early on in progression. If your guild is fully geared, then you're probably just ignoring most of this stuff anyway. So then, like I said, it doesn't matter. But I think that every healer is S tier in its own way, and there's no specific order that I would put in these other than what externals that they can put on the tank to help them survive. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this tier list. If you're asking yourself, should you play Season of Discovery? The answer is absolutely yes, especially if you haven't experienced it yet. It's going to be fun for a long time. There's no new versions. There's not a ton of versions of WoW coming out for a few months now, so SoD is a great way to pass time. And it's just, the Scarlet Enclave raid is one of the coolest raids that they've ever put in the game. So I hope this helps you figure out what class that you should play in Season of Discovery. And as always, let me know if you have any questions in the comments, or you can visit me on twitch.tv/Shardaco, and I'm always down to be helpful and answer your questions. See you next time.